Good evening, everybody. Saturday night. Don't usually do one on Saturday night, but of course, there's big news, and I do like to talk about the latest events out there in the world as much as I can. It's not just a watch channel, it's a culture channel, it's an everything channel. If you don't like it, you don't have to listen to it. If you haven't been, if you haven't turned on the radio or the news or anything today, you may not know, but Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela, the dictator, leader, whatever you want to call him, has been taken during the night by USA forces. And here to talk about it is someone you know and love a lot, from who previously appeared on the channel to discuss such serious issues. And we can't call him by his actual name because he does work for the US government. So he goes by the name of John. How's it going, John?
Good evening.
Good evening. I also have another person who knows a lot about political affairs, particularly in Central and South America, and has been to all those areas many, many times on tour as a musician, actually. And he is also my brother, Emmett O'Malley, coming from Los Angeles, California.
Hey guys.
What's going on, man?
Hey man, how's it going? Yeah, so I'm behind the curve on the news because I woke up, just a few hours ago, actually. Saturday lie-in, after the Christmas, no reason to jump up out of bed, and then
right
looking at my phone, and then all of a sudden like, oh, the world's gone to shit. Oh, there you go.
Typical stuff, yeah. So Nicolas Maduro has been abducted, captured, kidnapped, whichever way you want to put it, depending on how you see this politically. I had a few different thumbnails with the various words on them, and in the end, I chose abducted because I felt like captured is, I don't know, that implies a different thing. Be careful with words here. He was literally, they flew in the middle of the night, blew up a few protective forces probably around him and a few doors, dropped down from helicopters, went in, grabbed the guy and his wife, Flores, and they are now in custody. They're now apparently on their way to New York, Southern District of New York, where they will await trial. Where the hell do I start? Well, why don't I start with a little super chat that I got on JMB?
Yeah, there you go.
Then 10 pounds. Let's start on the nice thing. The problem is the world is not that intelligent. People are full of doubts, while the stupid ones are full of confidence. Charles Bukowski, 300,000 subscribers. That is the other thing as well. I was thinking maybe to throw a little party tomorrow because I finally reached 300K. And then I thought, if I do this political thing tonight, I'll probably lose them. So maybe I should hold off on the party. It'll probably happen on late next week instead, because I'll have to crawl my way back up. But I don't care. I like talking about what I like to talk about on the channel. So you should know that most of you guys know that I kind of swing fairly to the left in most cases. That doesn't mean I'm a Democrat. It just means that's a different kind of thing. But and I should warn you, so does my brother. But then, of course, we have John, who kind of represents somewhere else on the spectrum. I'm not going to call John an extreme conservative, but certainly more conservative than me. And so that way we can get a little bit of all the flavors here and talk about how we see what's going on. So let me stop doing all the intro shit and let's get into it. What are your first thoughts, John?
I feel like you're just avoiding touching the inevitable third rail here. My initial first thoughts are surprise, and I have two fears. My biggest fear is that ultimately all of this is going to fail. My second biggest fear is that ultimately this will all succeed. And particularly I'm framing that in the terms of what this means for the United States, how we're perceived internationally, and how we continue to behave internationally. So again, this is obviously an evolving situation, and all the details.
Oh, can I stop you right there? I don't want to cut your legs off
please.
immediately, but how are you surprised? I mean, that's one thing I'm not, is surprised. They've been building up to this for a long time. I mean, they've been parking boats off the coast for quite some time. They've been mentioning it all over the bloody news, and the administration making all sorts of threats. And it's hasn't it been kind of on the laundry list for some time, including Machado becoming a Nobel laureate as well. It's like, oh my god, that's so obvious. They're just setting her up to take over and
Yeah.
give USA whatever they want and so on. I'm just surprised that you're surprised. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
I guess
surprised because you wake up in the morning and you didn't realize it was going to happen last night. But I was
yeah.
certainly bracing for it.
I think I'm surprised at the swiftness of it, and I'm surprised at the fact that this was essentially one operation and not a sustained, prolonged campaign. I think that's what I'm surprised by. I'm not surprised that, we were eventually going to end up here, but the kind of the nature of how this was played out and how dynamic this was pretty surprising. And as far as military operations go, this is a resounding success in those terms. So I think my surprise is the fact that this was carried out, that this was done discreetly, as opposed to somebody leaking it on a signal chat before the operation was launched and blowing the whole thing out of the water. And I'm also surprised that we actually followed through with it that quickly, and we didn't take the additional steps prior to it. So I thought strategically that there was going to be other steps before this actual takedown, and I thought that there may have been some political pressure, and Maduro would have maybe tried to.
You mean like a vote in Congress, like a real democracy should do?
I mean in terms of giving him some sort of out without having to carry out a military operation, where he steps down, he maybe has some kind of invocation of a health issue and maybe says, I'm going to step aside. So I thought this may have been handled diplomatically and maybe even behind the scenes a little more, with a little more tact, rather than resorting to military operations just immediately. So again, Trump does not cease to amaze me, but he does surprise me from time to time.
You should just know that every 10 or 15 seconds we get a drop out in your audio. I don't know what else you can do about that there. Emmett, what are your feelings up front? How mad are you?
No, I'm not surprised in the slightest. I mean, I guess we could say that this started in 1998 with the election of Hugo Chavez, but probably most recently, nothing could be. I knew Venezuela would become a central issue in the Trump administration when Marco Rubio was nominated as Secretary of State.
Yeah.
The minute that happened, I mean, not that I ever believed a word out of Trump's mouth, of course, but all of the talk of, stopping interventionist wars, no more regime change, taking Washington back from the neocons, blah, 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 all that bluster, all that nonsense. I knew that was for naught as soon as Rubio was nominated as Secretary of State, that we'd be dealing with Venezuela, Cuba, all of Central and South America.
Yeah.
It was in terms of the operation itself. I mean, this has been done before. This is looks very, very like Panama in 1989, almost 36 years to the day, just before Christmas in 1989. George Bush Sr. went into Panama and arrested Manuel Noriega, who was the president of Panama, and abducted him, kidnapped him, and brought him to Miami to stand trial for drug trafficking. So this has been done before. If anyone is surprised, I don't know what to tell you. I guess maybe I'll concede a little bit of surprise that Trump, being a sort of, as mercurial as he is, one day he's on, one day he's not, whatever. He's hard to predict, kind of. But I think Trump 1.0 probably would not have done this because he was more in charge of his own faculties. But it's clear to anyone who's paying any attention that he's very cognitively enfeebled, and he's not driving the train anymore. It's Rubio and and Hegseth and Miller and those people around him, that they're driving the train. Trump is just like, he's just a demented old patient who is focused on shiny ballrooms and stuff. So it doesn't surprise me, because it's been fully handed over to the neocons. Not that the neocons ever went away. Like we describe, we talk about the neocons like they're a separate group of people who have varying degrees of influence on Washington policy. But of course, they've always been there. I mean, the US government is neocon, has been since, certainly since the 60s. So anyway, it's really, really unsettling. Nothing good is going to come of this. Absolutely nothing good is going to come of this. This is another quagmire. It's going to dollars and lives will be spent on this for, I mean, if Iraq is any lesson, decades.
So let's get a few things clear at, from the get-go here, because Trump did go up and do a conference, an announcement, and read his little speech thing there, and then started, of course, it turned it into a boasting fest about how great he is, which is always the way it seems to deteriorate with him. But at least on the front end, we got the info that they're taking over. Most of the press in the room were in shock, quite literally, because they were hearing things like, we're going to run Venezuela for the next while until we put someone in power. Again, just like Panama and many other countries over the years, following the Monroe Doctrine, certainly for South America, it's take out whoever's in charge, arrest them, make up whatever fucking excuse. Maybe you already have an excuse. You don't need to make one up. Take them out, put in a puppet government, a puppet leader who's going to say yes to everything you want to do, and then start sucking resources out of the country. And that seems to be exactly what's going on here. If you're not aware, audience, Venezuela, believe it or not, I know it's a very kind of a poor country, certainly in the past 20 years, has turned to incredible poverty because of mismanagement, because of corruption, because of the lack of resources and so on. But they are actually sitting on one of the largest pools of oil, oil under the ground, one of the largest in the world, if not the largest, over 300 billion tons. That's more than Saudi Arabia has. And it's all situated just under the Orinoco area there, and it's very hard to get to. You need to invest a lot of money to get in and drill, right? And this is exactly what they're going to do. Now, if Trump has one redeeming quality, if I can find one, it's that he does say the quiet part out loud. He has very little tact, and he kind of just tends to just fucking spell it out. And at least we're getting the real info to a certain degree from him when he says things like, we're going to run it. We're just going to run Venezuela for the foreseeable future until we put in someone we like, basically is what he was saying. And he has already said that he's sending in the major petroleum companies who are already ready to invest. So I think anybody out there who thinks who goes, oh, come on, not all wars are about oil. Come on, that's the old trope. You can't deny it with this one. This is clearly about that. My other thought as well, before I come back to you, John, is about this whole thing about this war on drugs, that, blowing up 35 ships going across the water, just saying, oh, we're carrying drugs, without any proof or whatever. And this kind of idea that Venezuela is some major importer of drugs. When you compare it to Colombia and Mexico and even China, it's a pretty small player. The other thought I have as well that's just coming to mind is, why do we blame the people sending the drugs into the country? People have to then, who are receiving them, have to distribute them and sell them and take them. If I was delivering over a cake to your front door every morning, John, regularly, and just leaving it there, and then you started complaining that you were getting fat, who's to blame? Is it the person eating the cake, or is it the person just delivering the cake over? I don't know why Venezuela are to blame for the United States dependency on drugs. But anyway, that's a side issue. But it's being sold, I think, to the American public, certainly, that, oh, these guys are evil, and Maduro is no fucking saint. We know that. But, that they're inflicting a certain amount of pain through fentanyl and other drugs coming into the United States, when really we know what it's all really about. It's let's get our hands on that 300 billion plus barrels, tons of oil. I have a little clip here from a few years back when Biden was back in power, and Trump just spells it out nice and clear for everyone.
Buying oil from Venezuela. When I left, Venezuela was ready to collapse. We would have taken it over. We would have gotten all that oil. It would have been right next door. But now we're buying oil from Venezuela, so we're making a dictator very rich. Can you believe this? Nobody can believe it.
They really thought we weren't going to see this. I don't know why he went into Venezuela. There it is.
So, I mean, I think it couldn't be spelled out more clearly. Now, I suppose there's two types of MAGA fans in America at this point. There's the ones who will deny and say, no, he's trying to protect us and he's trying to save the people, liberate the people of Venezuela from that horrible dictator. And then the others who go, I don't care if he steals the oil. I want us to steal their oil. We deserve their oil more than they deserve their oil. They can't even figure out how to get it out of the ground properly. We can. We're going to take the bulk of it. We'll leave some leftovers for them, and they might profit a little bit. And in a few years, our economy might be a little stronger because we came in and we showed them how it's done. Anyway, there's some thoughts off the top of my head. Back to you, John. How do you feel about
Oh man, that's a lot.
That was a lot. Sorry.
That was a lot.
So what about boots on the ground? Like, let's say the current administration don't stand down, which apparently they're not going to, because what's her name? The vice president Rodriguez is already saying she's demanding his release, which is contrary, by the way, to what Trump was alluding to in the conference. But I personally think Trump thinks they were talking about Machado. I personally just think, as Emmett says, his faculties aren't all quite there, and he probably thought they were referring to Machado, and he's like, oh yeah, she says she's already prepared to do whatever we need to do, but actually they were asking about Rodriguez. But let's say they don't stand down and conflict begins. Where are we? Is it going to be the new next Iraq?
Well, this is where Iraq 2.0 is a very likely possibility. I will say that I think, although Trump is obviously deteriorating with age, as everybody does, I think the big difference between Trump 1.0 and Trump 2.0 is that this time he's not surrounded by people who are willing to tell him no. Whereas in the first administration, he had a lot of serious people in the government, in the military, who were more or less the guardrails to a lot of his decisions. And I think he learned that lesson, and he replaced all those guardrails with people like Hegseth and all the other people that are basically following with whatever he prescribes. So I think that's the big difference of why these sorts of things are happening now, whereas maybe under the first administration, they wouldn't have under Trump 1.0. Again, the famous case with, as he was about to start a war with Iran right before he left office, and that decision by one of his chiefs of staff was more or less squashed before it could materialize. As for the motivations, I think it's pretty obvious when he's telling you why we're doing it. Democracy and free elections and all that stuff sounds great, but I think the underlying message here is the close proximity to the United States, I think, causes this to be a geopolitical concern for the United States. But the fact that there's oil, obviously, is another significant item on that list. The drug trade, that's a debatable conversation there. As far as what significance Venezuela has as a route into the United States, there's obviously some, but the majority of drugs going out of Venezuela actually go to Europe, not the United States.
Didn't know that. But the bigger players coming into the United States would be from Mexico and Colombia, correct?
Yeah, it's mostly Mexico and Colombia, but again, their argument probably is that because this is a pipeline, you have to start at the furthest point from your country. So in your analogy with the cake, I would take out the baker rather than take you out.
Okay, so you're implying that
chocolate cake delivered.
Okay, still having those audio issues. I wish I could fix them. I'm gonna try.
Doing my best here.
The Meredith, thanks, man. Nice super chat there. Congrats on 300K. Thank you, man. We'll see how long it lasts tonight. Well deserved. Emma, great to see you, and really looking forward to hearing from John. The whole discussion around Trump and Maduro today is wild. And then there was another one that came in as well from Portfolio RX, $10, Republican based in Connecticut, USA. Tough position for the Republicans to defend. As a moderate Republican, I'm not thrilled about this. That being said, Democrats don't care about Venezuelans. Does anyone really care about the Venezuelans in this? Was it ever about the Venezuelans? I mean, if they're blowing up boats coming into, I mean, they've killed hundreds of people on these boats that are sailing across the water. They were hardly thinking about the Venezuelans, were they?
Certainly
Yeah,
not.
I don't think the population is what they're concerned about at all.
Yeah. I mean,
Sorry, so I just with Portfolio said something about it's a tough position for Republicans to defend, certainly. But I think he said "but" at the end. Yeah. That being said, Democrats don't care about Venezuelans. No, certainly not. But I mean, I understand your argument, but it's not really that useful because this is not a partisan issue. The pursuit of Venezuela since Chavismo has been a bipartisan effort. So, which is why there's absolute silence from the Democrats, absolute silence from Congress this morning, as far as I can tell, unless they've made some statement.
No, Chuck Schumer has already asked about the legality of it and does it violate international law. I think it's kind of just lip service from him, honestly.
Imagine asking that question in good faith. Is it questioning the legality? We don't need to question the legality. There is no legal pretext for any of this, of course.
Well, let's ask John about that, because that's how we got talking earlier. Because John, you said that it may be a stupid move, it may be a problematic move, but from the legality standpoint, it's solid. That was your position, which surprised me a lot.
Yeah. So again, I want to make the distinction between moral, ethical, good idea, and technically legal. I also want to make the distinction between international law and what that even means in modern context, as well as U.S. law. So from a legal perspective, authority under the war resolution powers that the president has, American president can engage in military conflict, typically 60 days and 30 days for withdrawal, which allows about 90 days of military operations to take place without congressional approval. The other side of this is why law enforcement agencies were involved in this operation, because then that falls directly under the executive branch, which allows the president to more or less exercise executive power how he sees fit to enforce laws. The third aspect of this is the CIA being involved, which is where the CIA falls under Title 50 for covert action. So I think what they did here is they kind of put all those options on the table to cover themselves legally from all these different angles. And if you pull that picture up of Maduro, you'll notice there's a DEA agent standing in the background.
Right there.
Yeah. So that is a law enforcement operation. And as the news have mentioned, that there were representatives from the Department of Justice on the ground with the military, which my estimation would be those are members of FBI's hostage rescue team, or the HRT, which is essentially their tier 1 element. And those guys go international as well as domestic. And I think adding those domestic law enforcement agencies into the mix, it's kind of like the ending of Sicario, where they're in the hotel room and he says the CIA cannot operate on the U.S. soil without a domestic law enforcement agency attached. This is the same thing. The FBI being involved, the DEA being involved, allows this to be presented as a law enforcement operation. And while a lot of people were noticing the strikes on the alleged drug boats, the thing that I took away was the seizure of the oil tanker by the Coast Guard.
Right.
And the reason the Coast Guard was involved is because the Coast Guard under peacetime is a law enforcement agency. And so all these little mechanisms that I think most people just don't notice, those matter when you are talking about the legality of it. Now, again,
Yeah, because the charges he's facing aren't for being a dictator or for overriding the last election in Venezuela.
exactly.
The charges are narco charges, him and his wife, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And this is why when people are saying that this is technically illegal, again, if you're applying international law and you're functioning under the premise that international law is actually real in any sense when it comes to which powers are conducting operations, military strikes, etc., that matters. But if you're talking about U.S. law, which is where I would make the distinction there, if this was done correctly and classified properly, I think it would actually hold up to scrutiny under any kind of legal procedure in the U.S.
How can we just go? How can we just fly into a sovereign country, and whether we like the guy or not? You know, I say we. What the fuck am I talking about? How can you? how can you?
You're still an American. You're still an American.
You know, I mean, they just flew in and abducted, kidnapped the leader of a sovereign country, whether you like him or not, or whether you think, whether you recognize his leadership or not. I mean, a lot of people could do that with. I mean, China could fly in and grab Melania and Donnie. You know what I mean? We could go into Tel Aviv and grab Netanyahu. He's already up. There's already warrants out for his arrest. Isn't that just the same thing? You just wander into the country, grab who you want by the short and curlies, and leave with them in a helicopter. Emmett?
From a larger perspective, you're right. But again, it depends on who's doing the kidnapping and who is going to be reacting to the kidnapping. And that's kind of the unpleasant reality of modern geopolitics and war and conflict.
Emmett?
Yeah, it's as the legality of it. I'm under no illusion that international law is fake. It's not a real thing. International law only means anything. It only means what it means insofar as how much it can be enforced, which it can't be. So therefore, it's not a real thing. Yeah. Many countries violate international law every single day, literally every single day. So, and have done since international law was, created back in the Geneva Conventions, when in the 40s. But so there's America can argue it's a legal pretext or legal justification for its, but that's like asking the tiger to make the case for why he ate the gazelle. It's just like, yeah, of course the United States are going to offer legal justifications for their actions. It's kind of ridiculous. I mean, and you're what you said, Rasheen, about China could just waltz into Washington and arrest. I mean, yeah, maybe China have a law on their books that says, that I am an agent of, whatever national security threat to them, and they just fly in and arrest me. And we go, wait, where's your legal justification for this? I go, oh no, look, it's in our constitution. And we're the Chinese we're supposed to respect the Chinese constitution thousands of miles away from the Chinese homeland. So yeah, obviously, listen, legal justifications have been made for Iraq, for Panama, back in the day, back in 1989. And that was an easier operation for the Americans to do, because the Americans already had a bunch of troops there in the Canal Zone, which they'd been controlling since for a long time. So and
Iraq was WMDs. Do you remember that was the legal? The
WMDs, yeah. So legal is like, but my point about questioning Chuck Schumer is like, oh, I'll question the legality of this. Like, what? Dispense with all of the legal talk. This is just this nonsense. We can't. The international law has no legitimacy, and we've been shown, if we've learned nothing, if we've learned anything from history, it's that law. It has absolutely. It doesn't mean anything. Whoever is in charge, whoever has the most guns, the most might, is the person who gets to say what is or is not the law. Like, I remember this actually harkens back to something that John said some time ago in one of your streams that I wasn't a party to, but John, you alluded to the Nuremberg trials. Like, we talk about the Nuremberg trials and how they were the the bastion of holding criminality to account and all. And the Nuremberg trials operated on absolutely no legal pretext whatsoever. It was just the conquerors prosecuting the conquered. That's all it was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we can look back at them now with this lofty ideal of justice being served and all that kind of thing. But so it's whoever the biggest bully on the playground is the guy who says what is and is not permissible, what is and is not legal, justifiable, etc., etc. So I think the legal discussions, people are going to have them, and I'm sure CNN is awash right now with people folding themselves into pretzels, talking about the legal justifications. But I mean, to me, it's a non-issue. This was on the book. This has been on the books for a long time. You see the maniacal celebrations of the people down in southern Florida there.
Yeah,
it's obviously the oil piece is a massive piece of it. The rare earth minerals, gold, copper, etc. There's a huge piece of it, and Venezuela is a stepping stone, by the way, into Colombia and neighboring countries.
right.
And so there's that, obviously, in terms of the the profiteers, let's say the Exxon Mobils of the world. But this has been an ideological project of the exile class in South Florida for decades, certainly since Chavez, and of course, vis-a-vis Cuba, even since the 50s. This has been, like, you see the Rubio standing behind the president there. I mean, this man is an entirely irrational person. He was born into this hardcore anti-socialist, anti-Latin American socialist project. And he vowed his dying father on a deathbed that he would take Cuba back, all this kind of stuff. So, like, these people are thoroughly ideologically committed to this, and it's been like that for 30 years. So, legal justifications. Oh yeah, get the Coast Guard involved. Arrest him on drug trafficking charges. This is it's a song that we've heard before.
Yeah, and eventually, at the end of the day, laws are just enforceable norms. And when we say enforceable, it's a euphemism for violence.
Yeah.
So that's where all of this goes back to. History is written by the victors. And I think you're absolutely right. This is all it boils down to. We have norms and laws, but at the end of the day, they're only as valid as they are enforceable.
What about the timing of everything? I mean, for me, when governments make moves like this, they do it for several reasons. They sit around a table, and there isn't just one reason. It's like a bunch of things that all come together. So now people are saying it's going to cover over with it'll bring the attention away from the Epstein files. Then there's the midterms that are coming up. And obviously, if there's some sort of conflict with other countries, people are less likely to shift their position politically and so on. Could those things be playing a part in this? Jim Patterson's saying the same. You have to pay attention to the timing here. Also have to think Epstein 2026 midterms precisely.
Yeah. It's hard to know, obviously, definitively, but obviously these decisions are made. Timing does matter. These decisions are not made in a vacuum. If you look back at the bin Laden raid in Pakistan, that mission was kind of moved around and the timetables were moved up and back, and there were specific reasons for that. Least of all, the correspondence dinner, where they wanted to do it after that event. Again, out of concern for security and making sure that there were no leaks. But I think, again, there's so much in this administration that I don't know how much of this is planned and how much of this is just chaos.
Someone mentioned there it's 50 years of free oil. That's exactly it. I mean, as far as I can see, it's just theft. They're taking advantage of the fact that the man he's a criminal, and he's a corrupt leader. I don't think anyone would argue with that. I'm not sure that the Venezuelans, as much as they might be happy to see him go, want him to go this way. They might be letting a different beast into the room completely, and they may actually regret. They might be saying to themselves in the future, come back, Maduro, you're a shithead. But now we're under a completely different whip. We have American imperialism, totalitarianism coming in from the north, and they're sucking our resources out, So I don't think the Venezuelans are going to come out good either way from this. RBJ, should we be pro-socialism? Well, you should at least respect I would say that you should at least respect the governance of other countries if they decide to be more socialist. It shouldn't be up to us to go and enforce our non-socialist ideas. I say our, but whatever. There, I keep making that mistake.
This is a second Freudian slip.
Yeah. Sal, Venezuela is the 51st state. Iran next. Canada, 52nd state. This is where we're going, aren't we? Like, he's pretty brazen at this stuff, and I think he mentioned Greenland again there recently. I was like, oh my God, I thought that went away.
Honestly, I think this might be the most normal presidential thing Trump has done so far.
Because it's straightforward.
Because it's first of all, it's not unprecedented. It's been, regime change has been the favorite pastime of pretty much every president going back to the 60s.
Right.
So it's like, his meme coins and his just, pardons for purchase and all of the crazy stuff that he does. This is by far the most normal president. It's the most in line. Point. So, which is why, like, I woke up this morning, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, there you go.
It's certainly the most streamlined decision that I've seen recently, where you can easily connect A, B to C to D and get to the end of the sentence with completely rational, linear knowledge without having to contort yourself psychologically to try to figure out why are we doing this. So...
the original Monroe Doctrine, which is over 100 years old, I believe, at this point, was more...
It's 200
years. It was more about protecting the resources of South America and Central America from Europe. Yeah. From them coming over and kind of taking it. They were kind of, well, if anyone's going to steal it, we should steal it, basically. Is a simple translation.
It was more to do with the era of European colonization of the Americas is over.
It was imperialism,
yeah.
And that leads me to kind of my initial point, where one of the scarier things is that this works out, because I think the Monroe Doctrine is kind of where we're going. And if you read Trump's national security plan that was released a few months ago, I think it's more or less outlining that we're going to go back to the sort of imperial powers control the world, and democratic rule, international law, and all those things may not necessarily be in our future, and that we're kind of just going to divvy up the world, China, Russia, the U.S., and it'll go back to a sort of quasi-democratic imperialism type of model.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, like what Russia have been doing to Ukraine for the past while, isn't that different to what America are about to do to Venezuela? I mean, they just crossed the border and they went into a sovereign country, and we're all decrying that. But now everyone's fine with this. Not everyone, but certain folks, some people in the audience. No audio, says Robbie. Why don't you just reset, Robbie? Just refresh the page and see if the audio comes back. Audio's okay.
You guys can hear me, right? Okay.
I can hear you. But if one guy...
I apologize,
It's okay. It knocks out it kind of kills your flow a little bit, but this, I don't know. Yeah. Trisonology, if Trisonology is hearing the audio, then there is audio. Robbie, you just got to reset your page, maybe. So, like, that's another point. The precedent now. Like, will China and Russia look at this and go, oh, this is nice? Even though Emmett makes a very good point, this is actually kind of normal and there's been plenty of precedent. It's just getting back to business. We need to take over South America piece by piece. It's going to take us 20, 30 years to do, but let's roll up our sleeves and start with Venezuela. There's plenty of profit in it. And then we'll move on to its neighbors until we arrive down at Cape Horn and we own the entire continent. But are China going to look at this and go, you know what, fuck this? We were in the mood for grabbing that other country, and seeing as they're doing it, let's do it ourselves. Is it gonna make a bit of a mad atmosphere around the world that no one is respecting?
I actually, this is just my opinion, but from a geopolitical perspective, I think this is all planned. I think that it's not that they're worried about China or Russia or other countries overreacting and doing more or less the same thing. I think this is sort of strategic, where it's signaling to those countries that we're going to divide the world up. And this is what I would refer to as cell block diplomacy. And this is kind of like how in prison, the cell blocks are organized around gangs. You have Asian gangs, Hispanic gangs, Aryan Nation, and they rule their individual areas collectively but separately. And I think that what this is signaling to the world, and again, I don't know the ins and outs of the diplomatic conversations, but I would find it hard to believe that the administration didn't consider what China or any other country would do, Russia as well. And perhaps this is signaling to not only our allies, but also to our adversaries that this is the new normal. That if you take Ukraine, if you keep territory, we're okay with that, as long as you don't overreact when we take Venezuela.
Yeah, there has to be a trade-off going on, And as Emmett said, might is right. It's just the guy with the biggest guns in the room that gets to dictate what is happening and what law is. What are the chances of any retaliation by any surrounding countries or by some sort of, I don't know, Russia making some strong statement or some sort of showdown? Is everyone just going to have a little bit of pissy fit for a few weeks about this and then just calm down and get back to business?
I don't see any kinetic action or any military action being taken by any other countries against us directly. I would be, again, obviously anything is possible, but I would be surprised. I think more than anything, this is actually a win for those regimes, because this essentially justifies not only removing a sitting president, but going on national television and saying the not so quiet part out loud as to the motivations and why we're doing it. So I think this actually is going to be viewed as an endorsement by authoritarian regimes rather than something that they need to condemn.
Certainly, yeah. I don't think, it's I mean, much the same way there was no kinetic response when we invaded Iraq. It's not, the entire region didn't jump to Iraq's defense, or Vietnam for that matter. I think that there'll certainly be resistance, armed resistance within Venezuela itself. Particularly, I mean, listen, we have to see what the next moves are. Are troops going to be landing on the beaches of Venezuela? Is there going to be, if you're to believe Donald Trump this morning, we're going to quote unquote run the country and we're going to take it over. That's going to require a formidable troop presence for a long time. And Venezuela, listen, I'm sure that there is a majority, I don't know, maybe a plurality. I wouldn't say a majority, but a plurality of the population that is happy to see Maduro go. But that doesn't mean that they're just going to be some compliant, obedient population looking to Uncle Sam to install some CIA cutout. That's not, and also it's a very armed nation. There's a lot of criminality in Venezuela. That is true. Particularly along the borders with Colombia and Brazil. Remember, Colombia had been fighting the FARC terrorists, rebels for frickin', 50 years or whatever. It's been going along a long time. They're still there. So, a large percentage, I would say 30-40% maybe of Venezuela, of the population, they're armed, they're in the mountains. It's going to be like, it's, I don't know, I guess maybe I'm comparing it to Vietnam, but that's not a terrible comparison. It's going to be a quagmire for a long time. I mean, listen, is it a military success? certainly Marco Rubio and Hegseth and all those people, they think this was a success, because if to them it was. To them, it's a success. It's strategic success, because they don't think of
as a military operation. It was,
as a military operation, because they're less concerned with what this is going to be 2, 3, 4, 10 years down the road. Because again, people talk about how Iraq was a disaster. Yes, Iraq was a disaster, but not for the architects of Iraq. Or for the architects of Iraq, Iraq was a resounding success. That's precisely what they wanted to do. That it has devolved into utter chaos, and Libya too. That these places have devolved into absolute chaos. Slavery is back in the 21st century. Hello, in Libya, but that's not when we human beings like us talk about disasters. That's what we talk about. Marco Rubio, when he talks about success, he's talking about, for him, this is amazing. He can go back to South Florida now, and he's going to be hailed as a king, as a victor. So to him, it's a success, because they don't really see the protracted conflict that is going to come from this for the years to come. They don't see that as a problem, as a real issue for them. I mean, they can see it politically as a problem when it comes to elections and that kind of thing, but they're not concerned about that. People like us can talk about how we're concerned for what this means for troops going forward, etc. Human casualties. Do we know what the casualty count is from last night's operation?
Well, as far as the U.S., it was 0. I don't know.
He's not talking about that.
No. I'm giving both sides. As far as the U.S., it was 0. As far as the military, I believe so far it's been reported that a dozen or so were killed during the initial operation, but I'm sure that number is going to climb as reporting comes
I'm sure
in.
it has. Listen, the day after, the morning after the invasion of Panama in 1989, the U.S. said that there were 0 casualties, and then a few days later they said, they might have been as many as 300. The number is closer to 3,000 to anyone who's done any reporting in the country. So listen, okay, fine. My point being, we can talk about this being a disaster, but to the architects of this is freaking.
This is moving forward.
This is great.
I mean, they're already moving in the contractors. Trump didn't even hide it. That's one great thing about Trump. He's just going to come out with it.
Yeah.
He just fucking spills it out. He's like, we're sending in our biggest oil companies who are, they're licking their lips and they're rolling up their sleeves. They're getting ready, baby. Yeah. And they're going to start
But
drilling.
I think Emmett brings up 2 really good points. One is that conflicts are won through military action. Wars are won through actual diplomacy and getting the population on your side. So while you can have a successful military operation and decapitate a regime, day 2 is really where the actual war, quote unquote, starts and where the conflict needs to be resolved. The other thing is what we saw in Iraq is exactly what you guys are talking about, which is if you bring in these contractors, there has to be a huge logistical footprint to not only make this work, but to also ensure their security. And so the U.S. military is actually a logistical organization that fights wars, not a war-fighting organization with a logistical element. It's being able to get things from point A to point B safely and quickly, and then being able to actually carry out the long-term mission. And as you both have pointed out, Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, I mean, the list goes on. We're very good at military engagement and doing these types of surgical strikes, but we haven't really shown that we're good at staying for the long term and making it an actual success.
Well, yeah, but my point is success for whom? Because I think that the U.S. is not good at that. That's an intentional thing. That I think a lot of these people in charge, the military leaders, they're not interested in the long run. I mean, listen, ExxonMobil are not interested. Okay, I'm sure they have investment ideas going forward, but they just want to grab this. Which is, sorry, there's something I forgot to bring up a little while ago about getting the oil. Maduro had been trying to make a deal with the Trump administration over the past couple of months. He's basically saying, listen, You can have it. We'll do a deal. I'll sell to you guys exclusively. I won't even sell to China and Russia anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was offering this, and he also offered to step down, but on his own terms. He wanted to do it bit by bit and maybe name a successor, blah, 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 blah. He said, I'll leave, but the timing has to be right. So he was offering, again, I'm no fan of Nicolas Maduro, but he was offering concessions. He was making a lot of concessions. This
is why I initially said I was surprised by this.
Right.
Well, if Machado becomes the leader, she will give them everything. She'll hand
Machado,
it all over.
you see, but this is where the real problem starts, because Machado is basically unknown to the Venezuelan people. I think she polled at like 2% or something. So like she is not the same way with that Guaido guy from a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing it.
I think you're endorsing this, Emmett.
I'm endorsing Machado. You know, it's Machado is not. This is what getting back to what John was saying about, like, you need to get the people on your side. Installing a very obvious CIA cutout as the head of a nation is that's not going to happen. I mean, it might happen, but it is not going to go well. Right now, Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president, has been sworn in, and we'll see. I think you're right, Ush. I think Trump thought he was talking about Machado earlier on. Apparently, Rubio had a phone call with Rodriguez, wherein she's sort of made some assurances about cooperation and all that kind of thing. I mean, this just happened, so she's probably thinking, "Oh shit, or is a SEAL Team 6 going to show up in my door next?"
Yeah.
So she might be a little bit, yeah. But at the end of the day, she is a long time Chavez and Maduro confidant. She is, an agent of the Bolivarian revolution, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think she's not going to be a compliant asset.
You don't think she's going to step down?
I mean, it's very possible. It's entirely possible. But the problem is, like, the problem going forward is, how does the United States, manage this disaster going forward? You need the Venezuelan people on your side. Otherwise, you just have this protracted insurgency war, the same way we had in Iraq. And remember, mission accomplished on the carrier. The Iraq war went on for years afterwards, because we're embroiled in this violent insurgencies from all sides. Mm-hmm. So that's what's going to happen in Venezuela, most likely. I don't see a path to getting the people on your side. I just don't see it. Certainly not with installing Machado, who most Venezuelans have never even fucking heard of, let alone would vote for.
Well, they tried to make her heard of a few months ago when they gave her the Nobel.
Yeah, that was.
I barely fucking heard of her ever before that. I was like, hold on, who did they give it?
The most.
Can I just say how impressed I am that Emmett used the term cutout and actually used it properly?
I've heard you use that term before.
That's very impressive. But
I've read a lot about this kind of stuff.
That sounds like it. Yeah. I will go back to one thing, though. I do think that the actual people in power, I think they do want things to succeed. I just think that there's such a gross level of incompetence in some of these government agencies, and especially with the elected officials. Iraq being a good example here, where they just fundamentally misunderstood the situation on the ground. When they dissolved the Iraqi army, they removed all the Ba'athis. I think it was just a situation where they really had no idea what was going to happen. And the old joke is that war is God's way of teaching Americans geography. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, because I think a lot of these people just have no idea. You haven't heard that one? There you go.
I've never heard that one. No.
I think the failures here, again, unless they have some sort of grand plan and a 10-step doctrine to effectively control the infrastructure, to repel external attacks on Venezuela from other countries, to make sure that no insurgency takes hold, and to simultaneously place somebody in power, I think they just took a lid off a hornet's nest, and I don't know that they're going to have the longevity and the plan to actually carry this out. So
That's interesting, and I like that you name checked incompetence there, because I guessing you're more of the feel of the side that you suspect incompetence more often than you suspect malevolence, which is an
well,
interesting stance,
yeah.
because I've been kind of going that way myself recently too.
The reason I have that stance is because I've spent most of my adult life working in the U.S. government,
Right.
and over almost 3 decades now. Uh, and oftentimes, when people ascribe dark motives to government agencies, it's always puzzled me that the very same people will then point to the utter incompetence of the very
Which is it?
agencies.
Yeah. Right.
So, to my eye, where incompetence and stupidity and ignorance and poor planning and coordination are likely, any kind of conspiracy and high-end operations, they can't coexist in that same space.
Yeah.
Does that mean that there's never a conspiracy theory? No. And the insidious thing with a lot of conspiracy theories is a lot of them are based on truth, and some of them turn out to be correct.
Right.
So that is disorienting to a lot of people, and that asymmetry is what causes a lot of people to think that there's somebody in charge. But I think the scarier reality is that no one's actually in charge, and a lot of this stuff just sort of happens.
Right.
And from what I've seen, again, I've worked with some incredibly bright people who I would ask, why are you here? Why are you in the FBI or the CIA? Why aren't you, teaching somewhere or writing books, making a lot of money in the private sector? And I've also seen some of the most utterly incompetent people that I wouldn't trust to watch my dog, let alone entrust with national security type work. So to me, usually incompetence is what answers a lot of these questions from my experience.
I'm increasingly coming over to that side.
Do we want to look at some of the comments here? Frank says Trump is a businessman; he'll get it done. To which JBB says a businessman who got 6 bankruptcies done, quote unquote. I mean, the tourism in the United States is at an all-time low. They're facing possibly a depression in late 2026 because of these heavy tariffs. There is no ceasefire in Gaza, contrary to what he'll tell you. Ukraine and Russia was not solved in a day and still is not solved.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how long the fucking list is.
There's a lot of things going on here, and I think they're functioning under the heuristic of if violence doesn't work and solve your problem, you're not using enough of it.
Mm-hmm.
That seems to be the operating methodology here. But to anybody who is hopeful in this situation, I would also echo the sentiment that hope is not a method. Hope is not a strategy. You have to have tangible plans, and you have to have backup plans, and you have to anticipate secondary and tertiary and fourth order effects, both intended and unintended, and trying to piece these things together. And given what I've seen so far, I think this is a PR victory, like you said, for the supporters of this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But whether or not is a resounding and long-term success, I think it is way too early to get there.
It's to follow, just to expound upon what you just said about hope is not a plan, hope is not a strategy. Absolutely, and neither. And listen, I think I'm guilty of this, and it's something that I've been examining in myself recently as well. Is neither is moralizing. Moralizing is not a plan either. It's not a strategy. All of the objections to this and to conflicts around the world, Ukraine, Russia, chief among them. At the end of the day, you need a plan, right? You need a plan to end these things. And a lot of the obstruction, as far as I can see, I know this is a bit of a tangent here, but just Russia or Ukraine, because, a lot of the obstruction to any kind of resolution to that is is the a lot of moralizing from both sides, Republicans, Democrats, about Putin's aggression. And we can moralize about it all we want, but we still need a plan to end the effing war that's claimed so many lives. So, hope is not a plan, neither is moralizing. Unfortunately, I wish we lived in a moral world, but we don't. We need a world with plans and strategies and intelligent people to figure out how to end these things.
Yeah, agreed.
John, earlier you mentioned that you were both terrified of it failing and succeeding. If it succeeds, what does that look like? Regime change that answers to America, public government, now the oil starts flowing, and then next in line is where? Colombia? Are they going to try and re-enter Cuba again? There's a big... Yeah.
The terrifying, well, again, both examples are bad. I think that the quote unquote successful outcome here is brand damage to the United States and to the concept of Western democracy as a ideal. I think that if this succeeds and Venezuela comes under some sort of new regime that is either subservient or cooperative with the United States, I think what that demonstrates to everyone, both ally and adversary alike, is that essentially democracy and Western-style democracy is sort of a ruse, that it's the same veneer and facade that corporations will put on essentially killing you and robbing you. The way that health insurance companies will tell you that their primary focus is patient care, when the reality is their primary focus is profit. I think that removes that kind of facade, and other regimes, China, Russia, will more or less take the position of "we told you so." Because if you listen to somebody like Putin, one of his talking points, and the thing that he always pivots to, is that he constantly, condemns the United States for unilateral military action, Iraq, and what he's doing is he's demonstrating to his audience and other people that essentially we're all the same. There's no difference between Russia invading Ukraine and the U.S. invading Iraq. And so when they're condemned by the UN or they're condemned by the Americans, that this is all just bullshit, that everybody's doing this. It's like acknowledging that everybody steals. You don't get to take the moral high ground if you steal less than another guy, because the principal issue there is theft, not the quantity. So I think if this succeeds, it may be quote unquote good for the United States in terms of profit and power, but I think this ushers in a new era of imperialism, which I don't know where that ends. But if it fails, it's Iraq 2.0, but this time within our hemisphere, which is, I think people can draw their own conclusions there as to why that's bad. And having a failed state within our hemisphere, who knows, between the cartels, foreign influence operations, the Russians, the Chinese, the other countries, I think a lot can go wrong here if Venezuela is not stabilized in some meaningful way quickly.
Looks like he's coming out of the plane soon. Very anonymous looking plane, isn't it? Some little charter thing or something. That's weird.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, he's going to go before a court on these narco charges, right?
Yeah, this is similar to Noriega. This is exactly the Noriega playbook, like Emmett said.
Although there's even less evidence to convict Maduro than there was to convict Noriega, even though they ended up convicting Noriega. But
they have to convict him.
Oh, I agree. They have to. I listen. It's to the extent that we can call this, a trial.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that they picked the Southern District of New York.
That is interesting.
I believe they have a 98% conviction rate there.
Wow.
All right. Done deal.
Yeah, so that's pretty telling.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like much of a justice.
Those are not the odds you want in a criminal trial.
Although I
And,
imagine Dade County in Florida would be, he probably wouldn't even have a trial, just straight to the gallows.
yeah.
Final thoughts. I'll start. To me, it's just fucking Daniel Plainview. It's there will be blood written all over it. I do my own drilling. It's just that. It's the old fucking Upton Sinclair.
Yep.
And they're using the whole the drugs excuse, and he's corrupt as a just it's a red herring, whatever. It's just smoke screen. They don't really give a shit about the drugs. They don't care about the Venezuelan people or the good, their good health or wealth or anything like that. I think it's just classic old imperialism. We want the oil. We're going to go ahead and take the oil, and we'll make up some little excuse for all our little pathetic followers out there who believe everything we're going to say. I'm just going to say that.
You just gave me an idea for a meme with Daniel Plainview.
Oh yeah, with the milkshake. Yeah.
I drink
your milkshake
every day. I own everything around it, so naturally I get everything underneath.
Absolutely true. Yeah, in terms of the supporters or the followers of Donald Trump, and listen, we watched them again twist themselves into pretzels to avoid the cognitive dissonance right before their eyes, and they'll continue to do it. I don't think there's any. We do ourselves a disservice by taking any of that seriously. So I don't even really think about it anymore. And I think John is right. I think going forward, this is either going to be, it's going to be a quagmire either way. I think it's going to be a quagmire either way, whether this is a fast, quick, efficient operation, or whether it's protracted conflict. I mean, it's going to be a quagmire. And also, there's a little auxiliary thought to this as well. If you destabilize Venezuela, which it most certainly will do, at least in the near term, you're going to have a lot of migrants. You're going to have a lot of refugees headed north.
Yeah. Didn't even talk about the humanitarian crisis.
The humanitarian crisis, which again, in a few years, when there's another presidential election and the Republican Party can talk all about the caravans of Venezuelans coming north and all that stuff, So it's one hand washing the other.
John, final thoughts?
Yeah, like I said, I am. I don't even want to say I'm optimistic at this point. I'm just on the ship. I don't know. I will say, we didn't really get into the legality debate of it, which I think Emmett makes a great point as to why that doesn't necessarily even matter. But ultimately, as the line from Charlie Wilson's War and the Zen Master, we'll see. If anyone is interested in my views on this, feel free to go to my Substack.
I almost forgot. Forgot. Thank you for the reminder. I'm going to put the link up. Thank you.
No audio issues on that one, by the way. Pre-recorded, high quality audio.
Oh, so this is the brand new one. I haven't listened to it yet. Oh wow. Okay, great. So this is the latest Substack. I've been enjoying your Substacks, man, for the past couple of days. I've been enjoying them. Guys, go over to John's Substack. This is a brand new one from today. The Donroe Doctrine. What was the alternative name you were going to use?
The alternative name I was going with was Bay of Dicks.
Excellent.
But I think this one sticks, and I give President credit here because he actually apparently he came up with this term. I've heard it in government circles, but I've never heard it publicly stated.
Oh, we can never accuse Donald Trump of not being a talented brander.
Yeah, he is good. He is good with names. So for those that are interested, this breaks down the background of kind of what has led up to this. And actually, Oshin, if you don't mind scrolling through,
Sure.
there is a previous operation that was actually botched in 2020, where American basically contractors went into Venezuela. So the background is more or less Venezuelan politics 101.
Was this Operation Gideon?
This is the failed coup attempt that was launched in 2020. Those Americans that were arrested in Venezuela. There's a YouTube video underneath that, an interview that was done with one of the men that was involved in that. So that's a pretty good interview there.
Wow.
And then all the way through the current situation. So some of these are predictions. Full disclosure, I did write this in its entirety before the press conference. So some of the details I got right, some of the details I got wrong.
You've had a busy morning, John.
Well, I've been on vacation since the 16th, so it's either sit around and brain rot my mind with endless scrolling or actually write stuff. So the full audio version is included there for anyone that's interested and doesn't want to necessarily read it. They can listen to me read it with some
I highly recommend
context.
that, guys. I highly recommend it. I've been enjoying them. I stick them on in the background while I'm doing something else.
And they're free. So you don't have to pay. There's no paywall. Subscriptions are free. I'm not doing this for money. This is essentially my diary. There's a lot of other things that I kind of, as things pop into my head, I will write about them. I've got one about atheism. I'm working on another one about death. Just kind of
all the light stuff.
All the light stuff. All the third rails of our
the link is in the
conversation.
Is in the chat there, guys. The link, you can hit straight on it. Go over to Substack if you're not familiar. Substack is a good platform for this kind of thing. And subscribe. That way you'll get a notification every time John L. Richards posts a new article before he goes back to work and he doesn't have time to do this.
That's right. Monday it's back
it's
to reality.
Okay. Listen, guys, good chat, good points. I think my favorite point out of all of them, there was excellent points. Probably the one on the very top was Emmett's point that actually this is the most normal thing, presidential thing Donnie has actually done. If you look at all the other crazy stuff, selling watches, selling Bibles, and
meme coins.
Yeah, all of that stuff. It's pretty wild for to see a president do. This is back to regular, good old-fashioned imperialism.
Yeah, geopolitics.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
All right, guys, fantastic. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. I don't know if you noticed all the comments, but I would say it was about 70% hardcore right-wing stuff. But that's my audience. That's them. They're all the Rolex wearers. So,
hey,
yeah, there you go.
Maybe they'll open a Rolex AD in Caracas.
Perhaps.
Yeah, well, they just lost their number one customer, Nicolas Maduro.
Right. Maybe Trump grabbed his watch off him. I think somebody said that in the chat earlier. Trump was probably like, oh, fuck it. All right, guys. Great chat. I'm going to end the stream. Thank you for the super chats. Oh, by the way, I forgot there were two. Mr. Badgas, bidding is open now for new leadership, waiting to find out who makes the biggest bribe, who will grease the skids for the oil companies. Yeah, that's the way I see it too. And Jose B4196 with $5. If South America becomes unstable, that's a large, massive land to control in our current financial state. Let's see the ripple effect from our actions. Yeah, I think we all agree there. All right, thank you, John. Thanks, Em. Great stuff.
Thanks, guys.
I can't wait to go back and listen to this again later because it was full of info. All right, guys, I'll see you again soon. Next time there's some crazy thing in the news, which will probably be very soon. For all we know, within the next 24 hours, some wild shit happens. Or maybe not.
Yeah, and we'll keep an eye on that subscriber count.
Yeah. Am I still at 300 or have I lost? I don't know. I might have to start climbing back up again. And guys, go over and sub to John's Substack. It's really, really worth it. It's build up his audience. Thanks, fellas. Ciao. Thanks to all the watchers,
Good night.
anybody who's subscribed to the channel, and all the super chats. Cheers.